Hi and welcome to the Holistic Hub with Marie and Martine, a welcoming, nurturing and soul-supporting environment of all things spiritual, energy and alternative. Our intention is to freely and lovingly share the personal truths, stories or wisdoms we've gained, hopefully offering any guidance, new perspective or light bulb moment that you may wish to take away to assist you through your navigation of the journey out of 3D, through 4D and toward 5D and beyond.
There we go. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Holistic Hub with Marie and Martine. How are you guys going?
We're back. Whoops, sorry. I just kicked my computer.
We're going to be very, very persistently back. That's just our vibe at the present. We're excited to be here. We're excited to share, and the Holistic Hub is unfolding to be a lovely adventure between the two of us. Marie was just commenting on, she's like, oh, what are we doing today? And I was like, I don't know. I just thought maybe we could, do the chasm of fear. And because we've been talking a little bit about fear again on another level lately. And Marie's like, oh, well, can you introduce it? Because I really just can't be bothered. And I'm like, good on you. I just love that you show up and I can show up exactly how we are. Yeah. And we don't need to be on. We don't need to have changed anything about our states in terms of who we are, because, again, we always will show up with love and light.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And truth.
That's right. And I spent the morning with a friend of mine, and there was one point where I was just like, don't take offense to this, but can you please just go on Violet Flame?
And she said,
she laughed.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. and then goes, come on, let's swimming. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. You need to Violet Flame.
Yeah.
And we had an honest discussion about the fact that, her energies were becoming really challenging to be around because she was choosing to align to a lower vibration, and how I just can't support that. So we're out in the middle of the ocean swimming away, and she says to me, and she won't mind me sharing this, she's most likely going to be listening to this episode. Hello, you know who you are.
I
don't. And we're swimming. And she says to me, yeah, you're honestly like the only friend that this level of truth in our interaction is completely transparent and always there. And excuse me, you two, these two are bumping I'm just going to move this out of the way. They're just, excuse me, the Addie and Skylar, they've decided to play, right?
Oh, that's nice.
And so she says to me, yeah, you're the only person that I in my life that I really truly feel like where I've got this level of interaction with. And I sort of said to her, well, I feel like this is all I strive for in my friendships. And I used you as an example, Marie, and I said, as much as there have been many conversations that I've had with Marie that in that moment she's truth bombed me and, not let me buy into anything less than, it has often been quite hard to hear in that moment. And I've always then gone, oh, I can feel the ego in there and the reaction, but the blessing, like that is the strength of our friendship, Marie, as well. Like that is the strength, because that creates a longevity with you and me. It creates an ability to know that there's no BS between us. It's all what it is. There are no shoulds. There's no less than vibrations. There's no fear. There's no alignment to fear. And I honestly value that in all my interactions with everyone. And it doesn't mean that there are people that have come into my life that, I then go ahead and judge if they're not there with me. But it just means I can't spend time with them very easily. It doesn't ring in high vibration for me to want to go and hang out. And that's okay too. So this is, I guess, where it sparked off for Marie and I in this conversation around fear and how prevalent it is in our world. Obviously, we are, fundamentally taught to align to the principles of fear more than we're like taught to align to the principles of love. And why? I don't have the answer to that, but I do know that well, you can pipe in a minute. But at the end of the day, I feel like when it comes to love is a choice. So everything that we are in life ends up being a choice, and a choice of what alignment that we're going to vibrate to. And sometimes it's just about peeling back the truth and asking what I like to call the right questions to myself, as opposed to any other questions. I know within myself that anytime I'm in a state of confusion, then I know I'm in my ego. There's lots of really automatic responses that I have that I know that I'm not in my highest vibration. So in that moment, my one thing to do is to get myself back into that highest vibration. So again, we thought it might be really cool to just nut out again how you can continue to observe both the fear within you, but the fear all around you. And to learn to, again, not judge anyone for being in their fear, but to learn to discern whether or not that is what you can do with that information. Again, we're always out in the world living our lives, but what energy are you taking to that situation? What energy are you taking to that location? What energy are you permanently putting yourself in? And this is what I'm talking about, comes down to a choice. We ultimately have to choose between which level of thinking we're going to allow to carry out our lives. So would you like to come in there, Marie?
Oh, sure. Happy to. There's so much that's going in here thinking, now which way will I go? But this is sort of just coming through at the moment that, the most common question, I don't know about you, but the most common question I get asked by all my clients is when we're working through fear, because I'm a big fear, look out for it. Where is it? Let's work with it. And the question is, how do I know? How do I know when I'm in my ego? How do I know when I have fear present? Because everything sounds so normal, or, it's all just my routine day and it's my stuff that's coming up. How do I know which is heart, which is ego? How do I know when I'm in love, when I'm in fear? And, my self-check, my barometer check that I give to everybody and offer everybody is simply, and I did it again the other night to my client, is just to say, that in that moment, whatever presents, and when you're in an anxious moment, when you're in an irritated moment, when you're not in peace. Okay, so here's your first checkpoint. If I'm in peace, I'm aligned to my heart. And if I'm not in peace and there's something that's irritating, aggravating, as I just said, rising within you, causing confusion, doubt, the head's in there, you're going through stuff, the words are busy, that is all ego. And that is all fear. Fear and ego are the one. Okay, so we often have words and we sort of box things. We put things into boxes because as humans we like to compartmentalize. But let's throw them all away. Let's see it for what it is. That fear is a consciousness that literally infiltrates every part of your being and world. And why? Because you created it. And why? Because you chose as a soul to come simply down to this earth plane, which is only an experience and learning opportunity, school, space, earth, whatever you want to call it. It's literally the space your soul said, right, I am going into that duality world and I'm going to experience this game called contrast, where we have like fear and love, good and bad, light and dark. So we've all chosen to be here, and we've all chosen, and what's most important this time is we've chosen this lifetime to remember why we came. We've chosen to remember that we're not just coming here to go through hell, to have a good or bad time, to do some suffering, to pick it up, to get better, to make money, lose money, whatever it is in your world, get divorced, have a good marriage, have kids, no kids. We're here to simply remember, as we're divinely impulsed to, we can't go out and make this happen. Okay, we can't go and say, right, well, if you're sound asleep or someone's sound asleep, right, well, I'm going to become awake today. You might start reading and you might start taking that path to learning about the self. But if you're not really ready and you're not really willing to get to know yourself truthfully, nothing will really change. And this is the year, and this is what Martine and I were discussing yesterday. This is the year that this is the step up for many, many souls. So if you're already awake, you're being stepped up again. And it might be a little easier to a degree, but you've still got your stuff. But because you're well awake, you're going to be onto it, obviously, a lot easier and quicker. But then you've got the next level that are coming through, that their souls are pushing them into that real level of awakening again. So what hasn't been looked at of the self, that is the consciousness that has been created from fear, all that stuff's going to be bubbling and percolating to the surface. And it's not something outside of you that's creating this horrible time that we become the victim and the martyr in our ego sense and in our fear-based projection and pushing everything away so we don't get to know who we are around that and that we actually created it. But we're in this amazing moment of opportunity when we can just take a breath and start to recognize, okay, hang on. I'm more than I've ever thought myself to be. I'm here to remember the great, immaculate, perfected, divine, multidimensional being of light and sound that I am. And so anything that's less than that divinity within you is being challenged and being risen. It's rising up within you simply to consciously recognize and accept. That's all we need to do. We don't have to fix, that's ego. We don't have to get rid of, that's ego. That's all fear. We simply need to just recognize and acknowledge that there is another purpose for everything that we experience. And more importantly, that we have the ability and all the answers to move through that ourselves. To get to that stage, we do everything in our path that comes to us. We follow the journey, we go to the steps, we have our teachers, our facilitators, our mentors, our books, our groups, whatever it is that we need. They're our tools to keep us moving into the awakening of all who we are. And at the end of the day, like Martine said earlier, love and fear. What's confusing, I believe, and again, do what you want with this. I'm not here to preach to you. I'm here to offer you potentialities, possibilities. Is that, as Martine said, we've created a world of fear. We all did this because not only at the individual level, but on a collective level, because we're souls and we're creating these as opportunities, like I said, and as learning opportunities for us to awaken to. But love and fear in this consciousness of duality that we've all been many, many lifetimes, not just this one. This is the culminating one. We have now truthfully confused fear and love. And this is why it gets very difficult for many people, I believe, to discern when they're in their heart or what love is. Because we've programmed ourselves and we've accepted programs and allowed programs and co-created programs to actually believe that fear is love, and it's not. And I've had many, many discussions, let's say inverted comments, heated discussions with many people when I raise this point, because they say, oh, no, well, I know what love is. And, and I always use an example of our children because, if we're really, really loving our children, love is the ability in the highest sense of truth to enable freedom, enable liberty, enable a sense of love for everyone around you that is lack and less of limitations. So when we do that, as a parent in particular, what have we all been doing and taught for years? I know I did it for my earliest ones until I woke up, was be careful, don't go here, don't do that, no, you shouldn't do that, oh, be careful of that, there's bad people out there, That's how I was raised. Hey, I've been Miss Fear walking the planet since 1962. I had to strip a whole heap of crap out of me, still doing it. But that patterning, that automatic pilot consciousness, I kept doing to my children until the day I woke up, when I recognized and I looked at them and I saw their faces, their little souls looking at me right through their eyes, straight to me, with absolute fear and terror. And I just went, and in that, there's my heart kicking in. And I saw the truth and just went, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing to these children? And that was just one instance. And all, you know what they did? All they did was spill milk. That's all they did. They spilled the milk. I lost it. I got angry. Did my little rants and raves, because that's what I did then, because I was very anal. Everything had to look good, look fantastic, because I was hiding so much crap in me that the superficial outlook had to be perfect. And I was a nurse, so it was even more perfect because everything had to be neat and tidy. And they were challenging me all the time to break that down, but I'd be fighting them until this day where they spilt it after I just cleaned, and the wrath that came up in me, I still remember that moment so clearly. But that was the moment I chose to change. That I chose to become aware and be conscious that it's not them, it's about me. And what was I doing? And then from that day forth, then knowing thyself, getting to know who you really are, what's not serving at the truth of the level of love that is based in conditions and fear and limitations and your stuff and what you want anyone else to be. That's what we have to now turn around and face in the mirror and say, who am I and what am I doing here? And where and what are these programs? Where and what are these beliefs? Where and what is this stuff that I'm feeling, thinking, being, doing that I don't really want to think and be and do anymore? And where did it come from? And can I just let this go now? And if I can't, why not? Like you said, what are the questions that we need to keep coming to ourselves to say, why do I need to hold on to this? What is it that's making me fear stepping away, cutting a cord, letting things be? What is in me? And until we know what's in us, how can we possibly change? Thoughts there?
Well, I think that's a really good point. I think you've given a lot of food for thought there, particularly around using your children as an example, because it's an absolute light bulb moment, and it's carrying on from our hub last week where, you know, I've decided to take their parenting archetype out completely. But here's a good thing to ask is, you know, what are your questions? I'll share what my questions are that bring me back to me, and I'll share what my questions are to my clients that bring and my friends that bring them back to them. But I want to know yours too, Marie, because I think they're going to be invaluable to share too. So, you know, for instance, today when I was talking to my friend, you know, she was in that confused state, and then I knew that was going to happen. Addie, Skylar.
Behave, little puppy.
She was in that confused state, and I just asked one question, and it was literally, okay, well, again, if we take it out of the story situation, what is it actually starting to raise in you? What is the whole situation starting to raise in you? And this is ultimately a variant of the number one question that I go to for me is, if anything's going on, my one job is to figure out what is being raised in me. And I can look at that from a belief structure perspective. I can look at it from an archetype perspective. I call them values. Like, what am I valuing right now? And that's, you know, if I'm feeling angry or irritable, then I'm valuing irritability and anger. And then it's up to me to then ask the next question is, well, why is that a value for you? You know, I know already a history with my irritability and anger, which is usually just a cover up for not feeling safe or not feeling like that I'm competent or can do what I need to do. And so then the questions become easier, but it's literally a peeling back of these layers of really understanding what's actually going on for you, what's coming up. And it always comes back down to a place of nurture. Okay, how can I just nurture myself through this moment? You know, and yesterday was a really beautiful day because I had 4 teenagers in the clinic, like, you know, 2 going into year 11, 1 going into high school and the other one going into mid-high school. And there was such an ability to reach all of them on a different level. Like I remember this, like one year 11, I looked at him and I'd already, you know, said, well, you know, what themes have we got here in the family? You know, we all know that this is a theme. We all know that this is a theme. And we all know your anxiety is a theme as well. And, you know, I've called the mum on her anxiety before, so it's nothing new to her. And I looked at the boy and I said, you know, that's a choice. And he looked at me and it was like I could just see because when I had been trying to ask him about what was coming up for him, in that moment, he didn't allude to any anxiety. So then I asked him again and he's like, oh, no, I still have that fear of my health. That's still there. And that's a direct imprint from, you know, his mum, Skylar Robertson. That's a direct imprint from his mum. So it was really beautiful just to see the click, 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 click. And I think that's ultimately my favorite thing when I pose the right question to someone is they've got really generally no answer but to return back to the self and ask the self the question. Yeah. And when they do, Marie's always said to me that any truth is met with silence. Whoa, are they silent for a moment? There's always silence. They're always like, I don't know what to say to that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me what you've got to say around that, Marie.
Well, you know, obviously similar energies, but just different words or choices of words. But, you know, for me, again, I'm always asking myself, and I tell my family and, again, those who I'm working with, to really come into how do they feel. Because, again, most people don't realise they don't feel. Or they, you know, again, so many people say to me, I don't know what I feel, because they're not used to feeling. Everyone's used to thinking. And when we're thinking, this is where the ego is so insidious and so clever in a way, that it just creeps in because we know its voice so well. We know its energy so well, but we're not onto it because we're always looking for the most normal option or the things that we rely on most or the things that we're safe the most with. So this is how ego constantly plays the game with you. But when you feel, ego's stripped out of that equation for me, because you can't feel here. You have to feel here. And to feel, you have to stop for a minute and take a breath and just center and listen and feel into yourself to go, well, how do I feel right now? And you have to stop. And for me, that's the key, because once you stop, you automatically create silence. You automatically create a little bit of peace that you might not if you're trying to listen for the answer. And you just have to come into that space of the self to then either make the choice of going, well, like, this is what I feel, or this is, I don't feel anything, I'm not sure. But at least in that moment, you've come back to the heart and started the practice of coming in to tune into yourself, because that's the way forward, as we've said. You know, you can only go forward by tuning into you. And this is intuition, tuning in to the self. So again, it's practice makes perfect. You can, you know, not everyone's going to be intuitive like that, you know, because again, we've trained ourselves away from that. In truth, we all have the ability, but we've trained ourselves out of intuition, because literally intuition is learning the art of trusting the self, learning to trust the voice of the heart and the feeling of body within as to the guidance that you're now meant to be taking.
That's right.
And I think if we're all being honest, how quickly that head cuts in. We have the moment of intuition, but how quickly our head can cut in to demote that. And then we're back into the again.
and this is again the shift in that frequency of, you know, previously we have been taught to seek outside ourselves to heal.
Yeah.
And this comes straight back to, okay, well, if you've got something going on, like everyone always asks me these questions, and I'll always open with, well, from a pathophysiological perspective, but from the real perspective. So I'll give them a pathophysiological answer, but then I'll go, but have you noticed the location of it and which chakra that points to? And what can you actually do in that to go within and actually do that? So if someone sits there and complains about a headache, I'm like, well, what have you done about it? Oh, well, I think it just must be some detoxing. I'm like, yeah, cool. But what are you actually doing about it? Well, I've drunk some water. I'm like, cool. And then what else?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's, if you want to go ahead and live life like that, sure. But again, I'm assuming that even the fact that you've shown up to hang out with Marie and myself today, that's not you. And it's about calling yourself on any moment that you're really aligning to that. Because again, we have the ability, like even I've had clients talk to me about like deep scar tissue, and they talk about how, you know, well, what am I supposed to do there? You know, like, and again, I'll be like, well, from a pathophysiological level, maybe we could up some essential fatty acids, maybe put some calendula on there. But from a metaphysical perspective, have you actually gone in and checked the scar tissue out? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, come back to me when you have, you know? So, and then either you go and you do the work or you don't, the end.
Yeah.
And it still ultimately comes back down to your choice. But I can tell you firsthand that because I've then chosen to actually go in, as much as I can feel the ego trying to stop me, you know, think about when you're trying to meditate, think about when you set aside a time to meditate, how when you're first learning the art of meditation, you will go to the nth degree to not sit down and meditate, or you'll forget something on purpose, or it just won't be perfect.
Distractions.
Yeah, until we just learn to go into that place. You know, like when I was at yin yoga the other day, they put us in like the open frog position, you know, this one with your feet. And that is one of my meditation positions. I actually find that position really comfortable. So, you know, as soon as I go into it, I'm like completely zenned out. It's almost like an automatic pilot for me. If I put my legs like that, like it's like, oh, it's meditation time. Got it. You know, because it's usually me lying down for that meditation, not sitting up. So it's usually because I'm feeling like I need to go and get knocked out somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
Over to you, Marie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, it's a funny, well, it's not funny, that's not the word I want to use, but, you know, fear is this, it's this energy that I'd love for everybody, as best you can, to just start to get to know a little better. You know, again, as humans and in our consciousness of fear. And I was saying to Martine yesterday, this year Spirit's sort of really guiding me in a different way too, or my higher self is guiding me in a different way to work with the clients already in really getting to know the fear up front. And it's been so effective because, again, we have this thing about ego and fear, and everyone's got, you know, there's, I don't know, again, clients I know when I say, tell me your fears, tell me what you've been fearful of. And the majority will say, oh, I'm okay, I've got nothing. I'm pretty good. I don't have any fears. And I just sort of have this little silent, loving chuckle to myself because I know how we're all embedded with fear and part of fear we're created. So I realised after a while, this is going back some time ago, I realised fear wasn't the word to use because people have this aversion to the word fear. Anything fear, but you just don't want to know what you fear. So my word for everybody is always now, do you have any doubts? What doubt do you have? What things aren't you sure about? What are you a bit, you know, hesitant, reluctant? Any of those words that are literally fear, in truth, they all are under the umbrella of fear, as many, many more words are. And as I said, just getting to know, oh yeah, well, I've got a bit of doubt here or there, and that's how exactly where we start working, because they can recognize that, and it hasn't got such an overwhelming energy or thought of fear attached to it in an ironic way. But everybody has doubt. So if you're even in that same position of going, well, I don't know much of, I'm pretty good with my fears, or I don't know what my fears are, work at that level. The key is work somewhere. Because, I was saying to Martine yesterday, this year is, I believe, again, and why we called this the chasm of fear, this episode, I just said yesterday, I can see a chasm really becoming very obvious this year, in that distance of those who are really ready to move into their self and challenge themselves about what's within their frequencies to shift and raise so that they can continue moving forward, as opposed to the spiritualists. And this isn't a judgment, this is truth of observation and knowing that there are many people, bless all souls, everything's in divine accord. But again, it's saying and talking the language is very different to your willingness to walk the truth and the language and what you're learning. So this truthfully is a path towards fifth dimension. The fifth dimension doesn't come towards us because we're doing stuff and we're doing spiritual things, attending groups and reading. Fifth dimension is a consciousness that we must move and graduate into. And that graduation is the minimalization or the 0 point of fear vibrations within our field. That's it. So this is the truth that in every year now, this is going to be amplifying and amplifying and amplifying. And the souls who are choosing not to, and there are a percentage of souls that will choose not to do this, they've already chosen. They will be leaving through the process of physical death, and that's fine. It's going to be always tricky at the physical level, depending, again, what your understanding and grace is of allowing souls to go home. But there will be the souls who will be struggling in still their resistance to move through their fear. But the souls have chosen, not you, the personalities. This is where the struggle comes, because the soul is who you truly are. The personality has been birthed via the ego. And when we go to fifth dimension, the ego, the personality who you think you are won't be. You'll be a soul that's expressing itself from the heart. And so this is why we're in this phase of now really getting to know ourselves, because we can't take who we think and thought we've ever been with us, because the majority of what we've ever thought has been based in lies and untruths and in lower vibrational patterns of frequency and energy. So the game is now simply about us. Are we meaning what we say and saying what we mean? I think first and foremost now. And if you're not ready to do that now, that's okay. Like, don't think, oh, I've got to do this to get there. No, please, that's not what this is about. I want everyone to tune to you, tune to the self. And every day is just a day to say, how am I today? And truly, this is something I've done for years. How am I feeling right now? And I stop. And I literally do this, and I turn my head, because this is what I do. And I feel, and I think, well, you know what? I feel okay. I feel right now, I'm okay. So I keep going with whatever it is I'm doing. So as I've got to know myself energetically, and this is the key forward as well, know yourself and set your fields up and get your energy responsibility in check. Because as you know that, then you know in an instant when something shifts, when something's not okay, when something comes up within you, or you might be feeling okay and then all of a sudden you're not, you might feel angry. And so the questions like Martine asked me, what would I do then? And say, well, hang on a minute. Once I become conscious and aware again, going, hang on a minute, I'm feeling really angry, but I was really good a minute ago. My question then to me is, what's changed? What's changed here? So my self-check is, what have I done? I just do a quick self-check on me going, did I do something? Did I lower what's my thoughts? Where have I been? No, I'm looking okay. I'm feeling okay still, but there's this anger around me. Then I look outward in a co-creation aspect. Is there someone around me that's pulling me into their game? Are they including me somehow? Are they sending me some energy? Are they doing, be it conscious or unconscious? You know, the more we get to know our field, the more we get to know the unseen field that impacts us absolutely. That can create a huge amount of stuff within us that we think is ours. But when we actually clear that, sage it, we violet flame it, we just let go of thoughts that are coming up within us, and we realize, no, I'm okay. Then we can get this knowing and a feeling, because we've got clarity, because we've cleared us of, hang on a minute, oh, I've just felt like I've got a knife in my back, or I feel like there's this person that's in my head at the moment. And then we can tune in, and with the grace and love of God, to go, oh, and we could take that knife out of us. We might see a hook, we might feel their presence, and we might just have to cut that cord with love and grace and hand that energy back. But in that moment, it's like, oh, I feel better. And this is how we learn. You know, I am an avid believer and teacher and guide, supporter and sister that this journey, you can't understand, you can't gain your wisdom unless you're willing to walk and be active with the path of the knowledge that you have. This bit of knowledge, that bit of knowledge. You must be incorporating it into your everyday affairs, not just when the shit hits the fan, or when something goes wrong. Because in those moments, if we haven't done the work, you go straight back even further into your old default fear pattern. But if you're holding your own and the shit hits the fan, you don't go as far. So you can steady your ship and come back into balance far quicker than if you took the dive. And this is the importance of self-responsibility of energy. And this year is very much about that too.
And it comes back down to that episode. Remember, I don't remember what episode now, but I remember talking about it in an episode of The Hub, where we spoke about those little moments in the day that, you know, you get that little word to sit down, or you get that little word to sage, and it's about honoring that. It's about not listening to it anymore, you know. So if you're really feeling the sage come in, Addie, if you're really feeling the sage come in, then use it. You know, if you're really feeling like you need to go and just sit down for a minute and check in, like Marie just said, then you need to do that. It's an important thing. It's necessary. And it really doesn't take that long. It just, you know, we think it's going to be some big ordeal, like, oh, okay, you know, like, again, going back to when you first probably started meditating, you got yourself all ready. Okay, cool, ready. All right, when's the magic?
Put your TP up.
Yeah. But the reality is that if you just sit down and close your eyes for just a moment, I quite often do it when I'm out on the surfboard, even, like, you know, in between sets. I kind of can roughly know how long in between a set a wave's going to come, and I'll sit there and I'll do something. I'll do a scan. I'll do something in that moment. I'll align with the ocean, or, you know, there'll be something that you can do. It's all very simple. And you have these little moments through the day consistently where you can just close down for a minute, go within and do a check.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that check, you know, as a rehash again, just to remind you, am I at peace? Do I feel peaceful right now? And if not, why not? Because peace is where the heart is. So if you're feeling comfortable, you're feeling happy, you're feeling joyous, you're feeling nurturing, you're feeling loving, you're feeling just in that beautiful, happy, peaceful space, that's where, by right, that's our sovereign state of being. It's where we're meant to be 24/7. So if we're not, then we're the only ones that can alter that. We're the only ones that can make a change for that. People can guide you, heal. You can go to healers, you can come to us, you can go wherever you want. And you'll experience in the moment, but again, you'll only experience and receive that what you're ready to receive. So if you're making a choice that you want someone to fix you, hate to bust your bubble, but nothing's going to change. Because what you're doing in that moment is you're handing your power off to somebody else, saying, fix me because I can't, or I don't want to, or I don't think I can. And that's their lies. I'll be honest, they are absolute lies. You have the ability to do everything that you want and you want to do and want to see. We all do. And to reach that point of understanding, we have to walk through all the other stuff that we've created that we keep telling ourselves that says you can't. And so that's one of the biggest questions that I've had to ask myself is, why do I believe I can't?
Mm.
Where has that can't come from? Be it finances, sport, exercise, study, dancing, whatever. I mean, I was the biggest saboteur of my life as a child. Like, my fear, I'm not joking, my fear has been so profound because of the fear I brought into this lifetime that my soul, I now know, said, right, you're here and you're going to clear basically everything. And so I came in absolute fear as a child and created and co-created all the situations accordingly with all the players of like vibratory patterns. Okay, we can only match up with people who are like us. So if you find yourself judging somebody else that that's where they are and God, they're fearful, hello, bing, 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 light bulbs. You can only see that what you are. And that's a really big statement, because I know when I started using that statement for myself, and I use it all the time, I can only see that what I am. Because lots of people around me, if I see something, or if I'm bagging somebody else in the past, or I've, judged them, or I can see something about them, and I'm having a bit of a dig or a say, might not be speaking, might be thinking it. But then I'm with someone and they're saying, oh, isn't that person lovely? And they're great and they're this. And I'm thinking, we're looking at the same person. What's going on? Are you kidding? Are you mad? Or you have a discussion with that person. Can't you see that? Don't you see what they've just done? Can't you see how they are? Didn't you? No, no, no. Why? Different vibrations. You only see the vibration that matches you. And so that being that may have been with me didn't have a lesson, didn't need the opportunity. They may be just there holding the light or just playing the game at the soul's level of fun, just to assist the process. But they didn't need to see the teaching, because they didn't need to have a vibration raised or rebalanced. That's simple as it is. And I can tell you truthfully too, ego will do everything to justify and make excuses and keep you all in your head about why you're right and they're wrong, or why that's happening. And, it will always try to validate your less than vibration. So if you hear yourself just justifying and making excuses, and that can be simply, as Martine said, about meditating. Oh, I haven't got time. Oh, yeah, I'll do that later. They're excuses. This is about being honest now. Sorry, that's an excuse, because you've got a choice.
Yeah.
And in every moment, it's either I do or I don't. And anything that's fluffing in between now is ego. Let's get this straight. It's yes or no, black or white. This is the way it is. And anything else is a choice that you're making, either towards the expansion or away from it. That's the reality. But then the game is yours to play that. But at the same time, we can't continue to be the victims, and we can't continue to make excuses for ourselves when truthfully we know we made that choice. Sorry. Sorry with love.
And it's really interesting when I get the phone call, hi, can I bring my daughter? Can I bring my son? We're dealing with some behavioral things, or we've got some high emotions and stuff like that. I'm like, sure, but I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And, when it comes to, say, it's a toddler or an infant, and they're doing a particular thing, one of my first questions is, so is this something that occurs around the other parent? And they'll be like, not as much. It's more
just
around
us
me.
Three. Ding, 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 ding.
I'm like, oh, that's my in.
Yeah.
It is really reflective, which is why we either have story or accountability.
Yeah. I love that. Love that. Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
There's no in between. And me telling my friend today, can you just go by flame for a sec? We had a discussion. We talked about how, it's really not enjoyable to be around. And you know it.
Because it doesn't make you feel good.
Exactly. And this is the discernment. You know when you're around it because you're not feeling really good. And often that can be because, again, it comes back down to that question of, well, what have you allowed in? Because you wouldn't have allowed that in had you not, like, it's water off a duck's back. It's the art of no reaction, you know. Like, we look back to so many times in the last 3 years where there's been reactions on both sides of the camp, you know, and there's been plenty of circumstances where I've just been like, well, I can't be immersed in any of this because it's all reaction and I can't align to any of that. It comes back down to that principle of that doesn't align. And this is, again, what Marie talks about when we're moving into this 2023 energy of that third dimension to the fifth dimensional frequency. There are so many things always at our disposal. Remember that we're living in that age of so much information. So once we align to, you know, once Marie likes something on my Insta, then I naturally get, you know, privy to it. And then she'll send it to me usually as well. And I'm like, I saw it because, you know, we're friends anyway. Because it's all connected. So there's a lot of things that are in my interest that naturally come up on my socials, for instance, but it doesn't stop me from having to feel like I come away from some of those and go, oh, I feel like I've kind of been vortexed into that energy somehow. What's really going on for me? And it's usually something that's really crystal clear about what's going on. And it might not have been clear until I started questioning it in the right way. I still might have been tricked with this beautiful little, you know, remember that age-old saying, the ego, its job is it's to keep you where you are because that is where it's safe. That is where it's trustworthy. It knows that place. And so it's trying to keep you there. So it will work around very smartly to keep you there in many trickster ways that look authentic, look real, look heartfelt, but the reality is that they're not. So again, this is where I come back down to these, like Marie calls them, these less than peace feelings. If I'm not feeling peace, then I know that I'm on a detective round of figuring out what's actually coming up for me.
Yeah. And like, you know, for those that get triggered, you know, if you're triggered in the moment, or, you know, if you're reacting, and that's the key, again, another key. If you're reacting, you've dropped your vibration. You're not in love. Okay. This is the whole point. You are not in the vibration of love, regardless of what you might be telling yourself. If you're reacting in any way, triggered in any way, angry, whatever, fearful, you know, you are just not simply in the love's vibration. So somehow we have to work our way back or make headway toward that again. You know, and as I said, you know, this whole fifth dimensional thing is, you know, it is a love's vibration. And one of the sentences, and I said this to myself in the ocean today, I was floating around, and it's the truth, that this is a truth, and I know this absolutely, is that when you truthfully are in the vibration of love, nothing can harm you. Nothing can touch you, because the less than vibration has to rise to love to enter it, and it can't. A less than vibration cannot enter a higher vibration, only via transmutation and transformation, which is a conscious frequency. So nothing bad can ever enter your world. The only way that it can is because you're allowing it. You're creating it as an opportunity of learning more about yourself and vibrations. So this is, again, in knowing what love is. And this is one thing that I witness with the spiritual community. And again, it's not a judgment. As we observe, we are neutral, but we see. Absolutely. You can see everything. It doesn't mean you don't see it anymore, because we've all been on the varying vibrations. I've been down there in the lesser ones too. So that vibration still exists as a potential in my field, always, as it does you. But because I've mastered it and I'm conscious to it and I've worked with it, it remains neutral unless I give it the power to activate again. That's simply what energy is doing. So in the ocean today, I was laying there, and I remember my husband just sort of said something about, he made a comment of, oh, it's not as clear as yesterday, and I really like it when it's clear. I can see what's under me. And I went, oh, and I just heard that because it sounds very benign. But really, in that little comment, there was an element of vibration of fear, because he's saying, oh, I feel safer, I feel better if I can see everything. So many would say, oh, that's rubbish, but it's not. This is the level and depth we're being asked to go to, where I lay there and went, truthfully, well, I intend that I am loved now, and I am being supported by the earth mother's water. I am being held under the love of the sun. I am just lying in this water with love and grace and filling it with that love. And I know in that space, nothing can touch me. That's the truth. The other thing in the spiritual side of things that we have to walk away from too, and it's the ego, and ego is everywhere. It's in the spiritual community too, let me tell you. That this sense of love often that you see with the spiritual side is we all need to hug, and we all need to be giving, and we all need to just be mushy, and it's all this lingo talk, and we say the words, like I said, and everybody's in a love fest, and we're all singing songs and saying mantras together, and isn't this wonderful? Yes, it is if everybody's there from a love perspective. But, love is also the space of energy, which is truth. Love is truth, truth is love, highest truth. Where someone's energy may not be at your highest level to engage with. Like Martine said, her friend today, she could say that. But if you're in with somebody that just says, oh, and they're very ego-based, and oh, you need to, we just give love because I want to touch you. Often there's a lot of people that will want to come into your field because they want to feed from your field. Because we don't know, mediums, whoever we work with, it can be healers, it could be anybody that you're seeing. If they're not doing any inner work, you're working in that environment with their energy where they're at. And that's okay, you'll come for possibly teachings again. But sometimes when you're awake and you're discerning of your energy, true power, which is love for the self-love, is to say, and I've had to say, no, I would prefer not to hug, thank you.
Yep.
Ego goes, what? But that's what we do. But I have felt energies that are frictious to me because I know my energy so well that I'm not going to go into my ego just to say, oh, and to save face and say, oh, what will everyone think if I don't hug? Ego. What will people say about me? Ego. So I've stepped up to say, no, thank you. How they deal with it, not my issue. In that moment, I'm giving them an opportunity to look to themselves as well. But I'm also taking up my power of love to say, I don't need to have to, and I choose not to clear any stuff coming into my field. I'm where I'm at. And I'll send you love, and I send everybody love, but it's the highest love. It's not an ego-based love where I have to do it in a certain way or do it how someone expects me to or do it how I think I should be doing it to be accepted. All ego. Be very aware of this, okay? And also, as we step away from people and we know in our hearts, that raises some of the biggest fears in people of how to do that. And the fear of knowing deep down your real gut is saying, I just can't be with this person anymore. I have to step away. There is no greater gift when you are coming from love, truth, to say, I must walk away and allow you to be where you're at, as opposed to hanging out there and hanging in there, pretending that you're okay and it's a great friendship, relationship, sisterhood, whatever, brother, whatever. But to actually walk away. And I don't know if you're happy about this, Martine, but Martine and I years ago, in truth, we had our moments. You okay with this?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I'm not going right into it, but we got to a point where I knew in my heart there was just the energies going on, because everybody comes to play a karmic game as well. It's not all soul straight away or into the higher love-based stuff. We have to get through the crap, like we're talking about, the old vibrations and patterns that we played God knows in how many lifetimes. So Martine and I met. But in that duration of time too, the karma was coming through. I was working through mine. Martine was doing it her way, all perfect. But my message was that I had to leave. I had to walk away from that because our friendship at that stage wasn't of the highest love point. I wanted it to be that. And I knew in my heart I needed to leave. As hard as that was, I had to do that. And I've had to do that many, many times now. But in saying that too, what we can tell you and attest for absolutely is while that time took place where we separated, so to speak, disconnected, Martine did the timelines, the energy vibrations she needed to do. I needed to do mine where I was. We were working at our soul's capacity and listening to that. No coincidence, 18 months later, 2 cycles of 9 completions, we reconnected. And that reconnection just then was on a new frequency, a new level, and we came back together after we did the split and we worked on our own vibrations. We came back and were able to meet again on another vibration where we have now continued to grow from. But I can truthfully say, if I hadn't listened, I don't know how long that would have taken us to do what we needed to do to grow. And yes, do we go through our stuff with that? Of course. But that's the journey. And the journey is always the faith and the trust ultimately that we gain in learning to know ourselves, to have faith in ourselves and to listen to that. Because there is always a positive outcome when we do. You don't go from a negative and use that power of love, and love has to be tough love at times. The tough love of a mother that gives the boundaries, it says not acceptable, that these energies are not okay for me, that puts up the self-love, not as a protection to protect the self, but to say, no, I am loving myself enough to walk this way. And trusting in the divine, in our higher self, that if it is in divine accord and divine timing that we come back together again, so shall it be. And I just say, look at us now. I think we're a great example for any of you who are thinking, I can't, it's too hard, it's what will that mean? How's that going to look? But what if we break? Oh my God, what will everybody say? As best you can, listen. Learn to trust what is your innermost soul is telling you to do, because it knows the way forward. It knows your truth. It knows the love. It is the love and light. The lesson.
And I just think that when it comes from a place of truth, like when it comes from that directive, then it's the surrender that you ultimately can't not listen to, because in that surrender, you know, that person may or may not come back to you. But again, you know, like in other examples of friendships that I know that I don't see or that came to their completion, it doesn't make me love them any less. It doesn't make me feel anything different. It's just that I couldn't be with them on the journey the way that it was. So, and I truly think that our journey together in that, Marie, gave me the gift of being able to do that without any attachments. You know, whereas, you know, I remember with another good friend of mine, when I first moved up here, we had about 6 months where we didn't really connect. And there was a coming together again, but in that 6 months, there was, is this okay? You know, we've been friends for such a long time, that kind of thing. Whereas now, if something feels complete, it feels complete.
Yeah.
And there's no attachment to whether or not I should have tried harder or should be there, you know, in any different capacity.
Yeah. And I think that's a great word you've just said. Again, if you are hearing yourself say, I should, I must, I have to, I've got to, these are all words that are against your flow. If you really listen to those words, I should, I must, when we're being honest, we're saying to ourselves, I have to, but I don't want to. I've just got to do this. These are the questions again, why? Why are you doing what you know you don't want to do? Because in that moment, you're in contradiction. In that moment, you're in disharmony. In that moment, you're not in peace. And in that moment, you can't move forward because you'll continue an ego-based game again, which is usually because I have to, I've been trained, what will people say? I've got to go. It's just, you know, my family expects it. I've got all these conditions usually are always attached to those words.
Mm.
So just watch what you're saying to yourself, because they're choices that you're making. And when you start changing the choices, you'll see how things start to change. Because they can't not change. When you're choosing something that is what you want to do, you're honoring yourself. And that's not a bad thing. You know, it's not selfish. Can we throw out the word selfish now? And it's self-loving, it's self-caring, it's self-nurturing, it's self, you know, looking at, if you really have that part of you that just says, oh gosh, you know, I know that I'm meant to go. I mean, how many times have we said it? Oh, I know I don't want to go there. I just know that I'm not meant to be there. And you go, oh, I knew I should have come. You made a choice.
And also the time and time again when, you know, if you've avoided a conversation or if you haven't wanted to share that because it's too hard for you, it always bites you on the butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and for me personally, if someone's not speaking their truth, I know it. I'm like, oh, all right, that's where they're at. Yeah. And, you know, it's not that, okay. It's not that I sit here and I get great pleasure at calling you on your crap, although many people in my clinic will attest to feeling as if I get a lot of joy out of that. But, you know, it's just that then I'll get the phone call, bring, you know, hey, how you going? I'm like, cool. So you want to chat about what happened the other day? I can't, it's the elephant in the room for me. I can't not address it. And, you know, that's without saying, like, you know, obviously I've looked at if there's been anything that's been raised in me, but if this is just a blanket, oh, okay, that's where you're at, then I can say it like that and it still comes across with truth and love. Because it doesn't have that, you know,
agenda edge.
Yeah. Or you can even tell, like, you know, if someone asks you something from that place, you know, I've been, you know, like I wear glasses when I go driving, and you know, people often don't see me in glasses. So when I'm driving, they're like, "Oh, you've got glasses, oh," and I'm like, "Yeah." And then I'll get okay. So, you know, like, what's that about? Blah, blah, blah. And it comes from this really genuine place. And then other times I've had, oh, what are you not seeing? You know, and you can tell the change in the frequency. And it's like, you know, in that you have a choice in that moment. Like, well, how did that make me feel? What do I need to do here in order to respond to that? You know, often those responses when you're navigating them are more like, well, I'm choosing not to align to that frequency. What do I say here that isn't going to fuel anything right now? And that's kind of, again, something that ends up coming naturally in the moment, only when you're listening in your truth.
Yeah. I
think we can have a whole episode on, like, vibrations.
Oh gosh, absolutely. And I mean, you know, in my situation, a lot of the time when I hear and I see through people, that's just who I am and what I've learned to do. But again, as I see someone who's not speaking their truth to me, or they're speaking with forked tongue, it's the moment for me. No judgment, obviously. It's the moment for me to recognize where, again, I see that because have I done that? Yes, I have in the past. Mm-hmm. You know, again, here's the saying, you're a part of me, you're an extension of me. I can't see you. I can only see you because I'm you. But in that knowledge, it's like, well, I've walked your shoes and I understand that. And I'm going to, if you're willing, I will offer you any guidance to assist you. But at the same time, many aren't ready for the guidance. And so in that moment, my journey is simply to love them. And hold them at the highest level, that they too will come to the knowledge of their awakening as it's deemed and timed. But, you know, an ego-based practitioner will say, oh, well, you should be doing this or you should do that. And, you know, have you tried this? You know, do this and do that. But there's many times as a true listening, honest, loving practitioner that you say nothing. You say nothing and you allow them to just be where they are. And that's okay. And I know I've had, for those who really do know me over the years, and, you know, I get many calls as you do, like, you know, in those moments where people are freaking out doing their thing, and like I know which calls to answer and which ones not to. I know when to reply and when not to, because it's not that I don't care about anybody in that moment. It's just that I know my love moment is saying, you're handing off your power here, and I know you can do this, so I'm going to give you the opportunity and the time to do it. And then when I get the feeling to call them back or to respond, and that could be 3 to 5 days, it could be 24 hours or an hour, I don't know. But again, listening to what I feel to do, I always know when I go, hi, and they go, oh, look, I've sorted it. I got through it. I've worked it out. Yes. Because as a non-ego based practitioner, I'm not going in there to fix.
Yep. Hands up if
there
you've
to
been on the
allow.
receiving end of that. Hands up if you've called her and said, oh, yeah, I feel like we could do it the session. And she's like, not feeling that.
We'll just sit with that one, shall we? I'll get back to you on that.
But I'm not feeling it at the moment, but I'll sit with it and I'll let you know. Radio silence for 3 days.
That's just the way it is. Oh, dear.
Yeah. And I do that in a degree within my practice. I just do it differently. Like, you know, I can, when like the whole reason why I don't have an online booking system is because I like to have a chat to you before you connect with me, because there's plenty of people out there that you can see to get you what you need. So I need to know that I'm the right person for you, which is generally like, well, are you ready to really be lifting off these veils? It's not going to be an overnight oats thing. We're going to be on a journey. Are you up for it? And, you know, it's a lot. Clinic is a lot more enjoyable that way. It's not saying I don't just see people, you know, it's all discernment. I don't do that with everybody.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 more things I just wanted to mention before we run away, Marie. Mm-hmm. One is about your group that you're doing up where you are. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. I start this Wednesday for anyone that's up here on the Gold Coast, the Temple of Light that I've been guided to do. So it's basically coming back into my space, which is wonderful, and having people in the room again, which is, you know, I love to do that absolute one-to-one interaction. And again, it's upping things again, you know, really taking people through to working through their vows. We'll be using, obviously, there'll be light activation codes, meditations. There'll be, I know a lot of Course of Miracle information will be coming through me because I've been guided back into that area again. It's a range of stuff, chakra stuff. We just go with it. It's a space to come and be, to release, to share. We might be doing healings on the table. I don't know. There's never a rhyme or rhythm with me. It's never a plan. So we just turn up, and Wednesday it's 10 till 1 up here, and I'll provide refreshments. We'll have a little bit of a break. So yeah, and I'm just going to see where that comes, and I kind of see that will be also to help those who are waking up. You know, it might be going into a couple of different groups. So new awakeners to come and assist them through that path, and also children. I really see the children, giving them a space, if you have kids that you're interested in, to bring them here and again, to give them the truth that they so know and they just want to align with and be understood with. That space will be here also for them as well. And in saying that too, said to Martine, I'm feeling that I'll be doing a really get to know your ego group shortly, but it's going to be really simple. Even it doesn't matter how far you've done, whatever, it's going to bring you all back to basics. And the ultimate aim about your ego that I would like to finish on is it's time to start loving it. Just start loving, really see where your energies are about your ego. If you've got it out there, pushing it away, keeping it away, that's fear. Again, we can't be whole, we can't be complete, we can't evolve until we bring all parts of ourselves home. And that ego is you, it's your consciousness, you created it, we all did. So until we own it, we bring it back, we get to know it, we start to work with it and understand it, and we start to be able to love it. And to love, we need to acknowledge and accept. So we have to start somewhere. But the minute you start treating it differently, which is where I want to take you with the workshop, just give you some really basic, it's working so beautifully with my clients at the moment, shattering that chasm that we have of fear, and bringing it back, reeling it back in to bringing all parts of ourselves home. And without doing that, we remain separate.
Yep. So the Wednesday session is a live session.
Yep. And this will be online
for all the Gold Coast people, and then this ego one will be online. And both are really valuable, as you can probably tell through our sessions. It's always really nice to have things in live. Yep. And I'm super happy that you're offering this kind of connection again, Marie.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop us from doing this kind of work. And being able to be of service to a larger community we aren't all in the same location.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So
but
then
we're all connected.
The current offerings that are coming from my end in my way are that every year, and this will be my 6th year, I do a 7-month chakra immersion. And this is a very sort of deep immersion into the layers of the chakra. So we spend a month in each chakra looking at some of the themes of that chakra and seeing how they've been reflective in our life, both right up until this point in time, and seeing what blocks or what beliefs or what values or any of the ego aspects of the self lie in there, as well as the love frequencies and how we operate from the duality of both within each of these chakras. It's a really beautiful immersion that is usually 25 people all together for this 7-month period of time. And it's a combination. It's predominantly something that you can do from anywhere. So it's done through lots of different ways. It started off by just us meeting monthly when we first connected. And now as I've grown it, there's a million gazillion ways in which this information is offered. And so it doesn't matter how you show up, you just really need to show up. Yeah. So we have also a couple of lives in there as well. And I've had people come from all over Australia to come to these live ones where we have them in the heart and the crown chakra. But we do meet in this particular forum, like a Zoom forum, once a month. And we also have lives throughout the month as well. And then I've got a whole structure of pre-recorded videos and all sorts of things that are part of that as well. So this one's quite a deep one for people who are really ready to take it to that next level. And then I've also got what I call a beginner's chakra, where, it's like you want to put your toes in, but you're not ready to really, or you don't know much about the chakra. So you're wanting to do the foundation of work there. So both of those are coming from my end so far this year, among other things. But I felt like I just needed to mention those because usually they start around March.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Lovely.
All right. We'll be back next Thursday. We've got a date, you and me, Marie, to have another chinwag around the hub next Thursday.
Oh, are we? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Do we sort that one out? I'll be there.
We sorted that one out. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you again another time.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great Sunday, Monday, wherever you read it.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.